It is September 23rd. This is EDU Endpoint office hours. We're excited you're with us. Open office hours today, and we'll run through a few updates really quickly. On the Intune front, service release 2509 is out. A lot of minor updates. I consider minor updates, but there is a little bit bigger of an update that I just wanted to inform you all about. You may have seen over the summer that there was some news, maybe some ambiguity around security baselines when we release new security baselines and kind of what that behavior is for updating them, if you have any customizations that you make when you deploy security baselines. So if you're not familiar, Intune does offer some kind of pre-canned templates, if you will. They're just security baselines. It's leveraging all the settings that Microsoft deems a highly secure Windows 11 device, for example, but we have them for Windows 11, Windows 365, Edge, M365 apps for enterprise. And there were some questions over the summer about how this behavior works when you make customizations to those security baselines and what happens when there's an update to it. And so with service release 2509, and I threw the link in the chat here as well, that with the security baselines, we now have the ability to update them, and you have the option to retain or discard your customizations. And so there's a whole new document there that I would encourage you to look at. Ironically, I very, very seldom recommend security baselines, especially as is. I've never have told a customer to utilize the security baseline, take it as is that Microsoft gives you, and just deploy it out to your devices. There absolutely may be a use case out there for that. I just haven't seen it specific to education customers where that would actually be a good thing. It's a little too secure in most cases. And there's also some issues that some of the policies out there may not have updated CSPs, and so the settings that are applied can actually, what we refer to as a tattoo. They'll set it in the registry and it'll stay there and you can't really revert back. So I always encourage to look at the security baselines, take them kind of for what they are, but use your own experiences and review with your own stakeholders in your organization before you deploy as is. There's a ton of settings in those. So I don't know how many of you are actually using security baselines, but that's probably the biggest update that I saw within 2509 that I wanted to call out to you guys. Richard, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think the big thing with security baselines is that we used to have some issues with autopilot, where in some cases you'd get black screens. Don't remember off the top of my head which one of the policies within the baseline was causing the issue, but we've definitely seen just some, strange issues that you wouldn't necessarily expect. And so this is just why it's like, if you have a baseline that's provided either by us or by someone else, some third party, it's always, trust but verify kind of thing. Just make sure that it works in your environment, it works in the use cases that you're using them for. But yeah, for me, I don't really recommend just flatly deploying out baselines without really testing them.
But
and then I go and create my own.
Akash has a question in the chat that's probably worthy of bringing up. So Akash's question is there anything you would recommend deploying as is in the EDU space, or is it a matter of customizing the baseline? That's a great question. So Richard, of being Richard, has actually done this for you. So if you go to aka.ms/EDUDC, I'll throw it in the chat here for you. This is kind of our team's recommendation for EDU devices, and it's settings catalog profiles, so they're not security baselines necessarily, but you can treat them as the same concept of them, right? Like it's recommended settings for education devices with all the use cases, right? One-to-one, shared devices, kiosks, things like that. So you could definitely import these into your tenant. There's a way to do so automatically. They are imported into your tenant, but they're not assigned to anything. So you have full customization capabilities. You can deploy it as is if you want. I have a lot more confidence in deploying this as is, as opposed to the security baseline itself. But you can certainly modify this and deploy it out. But it's more than just the policy configuration that security baselines is going to hold. It's going to be inclusive of Win32 apps, update rings for Windows Update for Business, or Windows Update client policies, excuse me, endpoint security, right? All of this goodness, even autopilot profiles that you can test out. There's also an hour-long walkthrough on how you can do this. So this is what I would recommend if there's anything kind of a get started quick guide that I would follow.
Yeah, the only it still has the same trust but verify, right? Like you want to make sure that as you're importing these into your environment, they're not targeted to anyone. So you'll have to target the appropriate group, but just test, make sure that they work. And it's designed, as Garrett said, as a starting point. These aren't going to be all inclusive, and it's like, hey, this is exactly what Microsoft recommends. This is what we have learned over the years dealing with education, both K-12 and higher ed. So try them out, but just know that you're probably going to want to tweak them as it pertains to your use cases in your environment.
Exactly. And this is all on GitHub. So if you make an account and you want to inform updates that you think we should include in this, you can let us know.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Exactly, Tom. That is a career limiting move.
Maybe those are good. Yeah, I wouldn't do anything without testing. The other thing that we announced this past week was we have some partners in this space that are going to be we've partnered with some partners third-party solutions to help MSPs specifically, which are managed service providers, help manage multiple Intune tenants. The reason I'm including this is because I've worked with like the state of Texas, where we have a lot of regional service centers that may service a lot of K-12 districts, and they are responsible for a lot of tenants in their environment, kind of as acting as that centralized MSP in a lot of ways. And so this actually is kind of a welcome change. We've always needed some multi-tenant capabilities when we release things like multi-tenant organization, MTO, within Intra and the M365 collaboration space. That didn't do a lot for us in the Intune world, but the Intune team has partnered with some of our software developer partners out there like Nerdio and Enforcer. I've never actually heard of Enforcer, but we have a great relationship with Nerdio to be able to manage multiple tenants through that platform. So it is, a separate cost. And I again, I was a little leery on doing this, but I think it actually solves a lot of challenges for, especially in the K-12 space. If you're working for a state and you manage a lot of K-12 customers, you could do this. If you happen to be in higher ed and you happen to be a Nerdio customer, and you happen to have multiple tenants in your organization that you are responsible for, there could be some benefit there to you automatically. So you might want to check out that blog and see, but I do think that there are some kind of niche use cases for the education space. Richard, did you throw this link in here?
Yeah, so I threw in a whole bunch of links.
Okay, so, well then you can talk about them.
No, I threw them in here so you would talk about them.
I didn't even see this one,
This
so
is pop
go
quiz.
ahead.
This is a pop quiz time. All right, yeah. So a few support tips. So the first one here: troubleshooting device cap breach when enrolling devices into Microsoft Intune. So one of the challenges I think a lot of people end up having with Intune is you really have two device objects or two enrollments that you're dealing with. One is with Entra, the other is with Intune, and both have their own device caps. So our support team wrote up a very lengthy blog going through the different error messages that you might run into depending on which device cap you're hitting. So that's one. Garrett, go ahead and move over to the next slide.
Okay.
So I assume you're probably going to jump into the Windows 365 stuff. You probably have some show and tell that you want to do with that, right?
We can if you want to,
Maybe.
but
Okay.
ad
So
hoc.
yeah, and so for some of the other stuff with Intune, so last time we had talked about some upcoming Microsoft Intune network changes. Um, we're we're shifting to using Azure Front Door IP addresses, which historically with Intune, it's like, hey, you have to allow outbound connectivity to this wide swath of different locations. You're still going to have those accessible. I don't know if the plan is going to be to put everything behind front door, but for right now, front door is going to be required on top of the current outbound network locations you're going to need. So don't turn off anything, but you're going to need to allow some additional IP addresses if you're currently blocking outbound access. So for a lot of people, this probably isn't going to be a major change, but for some people, it's definitely going to. And so we've been posting this all over the place. Even I think there's a banner in the Intune console now that
Yep.
says, "Hey, there's going to be a change coming for Intune, so you want to get ahead of this." And I think the change is first week of October. I think October 2nd. I think if I remember right.
Yeah. Yep.
So you want to make sure to have these changes in or have these modifications made to any firewalls or anything that's restricting outbound access. Make sure to have those changes in before then. 0-day support for iOS, iPadOS, and macOS 26. That is available now. We've got a deep dive into the Autopilot device prep. So Maggie, who we had on, I guess when Autopilot device prep came out, she was on an office hours call and we went over Autopilot device prep. She now has produced a blog talking about how and when to deploy. Personally, I don't think device prep works in many education scenarios. It'll work in some, but in most of them, I still think Autopilot self-deploy is probably the best method. But there's definitely going to be some use cases for the other types. But I think for the vast majority, especially if you're dealing with shared devices, shared environments, you're probably going to want to use self-deploy in most of those cases. But we're starting to see Autopilot device prep used in other places, one of which Garrett will probably be talking about here in a bit with Cloud Apps and Windows 365. But we're still enhancing and improving device prep. I don't know if it's ever going to be at parity with what we're doing with something like self-deploy and Autopilot, but we'll have to see if that comes to pass.
Well,
And then
actually,
lastly,
let's make a note of that, right? Like if y'all are actually using Autopilot device preparation profiles and you see a benefit there and you want a self-deploy mechanism, right? That's, an improvement somehow that we can make, like, be sure to let us or your Microsoft account reps know so that we can continue to advocate for that change. Because again, it's one of those things that I think if it's not broke, don't fix it from the engineering perspective. And so if we want to see further enhancements to that, we need y'all's voices. So I'll just leave it at that.
yeah, thanks, Garrett. And then the last bit here is October 6th, we will have another tech community live session for Intune. If you get the link to that, it will, I think there's 4 sessions. I think there's like 8 a.m. goes till noon. There's
Yep.
a number of different sessions on Intune, so make sure to check that out. I think that should be it for the stuff I added, Garrett. If you go to the next slide.
Okay.
I think you should be able to Windows 365 stuff.
Yep, there it is. All right. So we had it's so funny, right? We had not as much on the Intune front, but we have a ton on the Windows 365 front. It was a big week for Windows 365. So if you're using Windows 365 in your environment, you'll see that we actually, within the Windows app, we've embedded some new health checks. So being able to get more rich intelligence around connectivity time and just some more details around the Windows app experience itself, including being able to connect to the Windows 365 Cloud PC. Some of the additional logging in there is all included in those health checks. So we're excited to see that that's getting a little more robust connectivity capabilities in there. But then there was a really big blog that it's titled Windows 365 brings resilient AI-driven cloud productivity to more users. And what I did was I actually threw kind of the sub-blogs related to this large blog. So this large blog had just announcement after announcement after announcement, and then all the sub-blogs that you see are kind of deep dives into those specific features there. Um, the first one was actually published, I think, back in August, which Richard reminded me to get included, was that if you are in the VDI space whatsoever, you're familiar with the Gartner Magic Quadrants, Microsoft is the leader in VDI. In desktop as a service, whether that's a SaaS service, whether it's PaaS service, doesn't matter. They are including both AVD and Windows 365 offerings as part of that leadership status. But more than Citrix, more than Omnissa, Horizon, whatever you want to call them these days, we've got leader status kind of the far upper right hand quadrant. And so if you are looking to virtualize Windows in any capacity, Microsoft is the leader there, and we've got you covered. And I think that really speaks to some of the enhancements that we brought to the services, especially us doubling down on Windows 365. Like if you haven't seen it or haven't heard, Microsoft is really heavily investing in Windows in the cloud, like Windows being a cloud product. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but Windows 365, if you haven't played with it, it's super simple to deploy. You procure a license, just like your N365 licenses. You assign it to a user with some instructions. It's like autopilot essentially, and we have a cloud PC up and running within 30, 45 minutes, maybe an hour, depending on your configurations. But we're investing heavily into the solution to make it the best of breed, I think, and that's really emphasized by the announcements this week. So the first one being that we've updated the Windows 365 boot capability, and then we have a connection center as well. So what that means is that we can now do Windows 365 boot, which is a feature where we can tie a cloud PC essentially to a Windows 11 box. So we can have a Windows 11 box boot directly to the cloud PC and kind of bypass the local OS. This was a really good solution for some use cases out there, but I think it lacked a little bit of flexibility, especially if you are a user that had multiple cloud PCs. And so Windows 365 boot now supports the connection center, which gives you the ability to flip between all of the cloud PCs that have been provisioned for your user. That could be different size SKUs, different use cases there. Some have GPUs, some don't, right? Whatever the case may be, we now have improved experiences to be able to flip to that and generally just enhanced capabilities for the boot. Additionally, oh, there you go, sharing the
Yeah,
screen.
I'm just going to
Appreciate
scroll
it.
through while
Yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
talk. I think it's probably easier that way. So
Okay,
they can
that's
see what
fine.
you're talking about.
I love it.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, yeah, kind of talked about the enhanced troubleshooting and diagnostics, just understanding more around the error handling and getting a greater experience there so that customers can report up to you all what's happening, and we can correlate that within Intune to get a little bit more understanding on what's going on there. I think there was also, did I miss it, about um, being able to revert back, or is that still
Talking about cross region?
no? I may be making it up.
You could be.
Yeah. Anyways, so we also have cross-region disaster recovery SKUs. So with Windows 365, when you provision those cloud PCs, they actually live in the data center that's closest to where you choose in your region. We have the ability to purchase additional SKUs where you can have fallbacks. So those cloud PCs live in a separate region somewhere far away from you, so you can still access those cloud PCs in the event of a disaster. And Windows 365 now boots that as well, so we can flip over to that should you have a use case for it. We brought some enhanced display setting support, so like things like multi-monitor support and being able to adjust your specific display settings based on user preference. We've got some capabilities where we didn't have that. We didn't have quite the flexibility there. I think that's mostly it for the boot.
Yeah,
You do need to be on the latest version of the Windows app to support those features there. The next one was extending Copilot and Intune to manage the Windows 365 cloud PCs. So we've actually brought additional skills. If you haven't seen Copilot in Intune yet, it does require Security Copilot SCUs to be provisioned in your environment. That lights up the capabilities for Copilot to interact with Intune. And we've brought Windows 365 skills. I like to call them skills directly in Copilot for Intune. So you can actually ask questions about the Windows 365 service within Copilot for Intune, like this example. Show me all my 4 vCPU Cloud PC licenses that are in my tenant and get an instant response there. Scrolling down, we can also troubleshoot a little bit. At least to a degree, we can discover, if any users are having performance issues by region and get some intelligence and rich data behind there. So that's kind of nice. And in context recommendations. So being able to plan your environment and manage costs, ask questions around that to optimize that service for you. I think that's actually, it wasn't highlighted very much, but I think that's a really cool capability to ensure that we're taking the data that we know within your Windows 365 environment. Are these cloud PCs right-sized within your environment or not? How can we help optimize that for cost purposes? All right, moving on, announcing Windows 365 Frontline for government cloud customers and GCC high customers. So Windows 365 Frontline is our kind of mode, if you will, to be able to support like shift-based workers or those who we can provision up to 3 cloud PCs per 1 license, but it's non-concurrent use, so only one person can connect at a time, but they're still dedicated machines, so it acts as their personal machine. So that's really great for like those nurses. You can have optimized costs, right? Being able to offer, let's say nursing, for example, you got 3 nurses, you can provision 1 license for those 3 users, and they can only access their cloud PC during their shift. So that's a great use case for a lot of customers. We were missing that it wasn't available in government cloud, but now it is. It's GA there. We also have it in shared mode as well, which is that non-persistent use case there. I actually see this really being interesting for a lot of education customers. I don't think many of you have a GCC tenant or GCCH tenant, but if you do, you can leverage Windows 365 Frontline in there.
Yeah, I think with some that do have GCC, I think I've seen it in a few EDU where anyone that has like a police department, not anyone, but some that have their own police departments in the higher ed space, even I guess maybe some of the larger K-12s, I've seen some there too that might have a separate tenant that has GCC. But for the most part, it's fairly rare. We haven't really seen a ton of it, but it is definitely out there in some capacities.
For sure, or if you just have stringent requirements. I don't know if our R1 institutions may need this depending on government contract work, right? That could be a use case as well. So a lot of information on the blog, but that's about that summarizes
yeah,
it.
I mean, this whole thing can really, we could spend a full week talking about GCC High and Windows 365. Let's flip over to cloud apps.
Yep. And so this Frontline shared being available for government cloud is also really interesting because of the new public preview release of Windows 365 cloud apps. Now, if you're not familiar with Microsoft's VDI offerings, right, we've got Azure Virtual Desktop, Windows 365, and with Azure Virtual Desktop, we've had the ability to publish both desktops and remote apps for a while now. But with Windows 365, it was desktops only, right, with the enterprise or frontline mode. What we have announced, and this is in public preview, is the ability to deploy cloud apps. So this is a new offering within the Windows 365 service that's likened to the remote app publishing within EVD. It's a little bit simpler, or at least it will be a little bit simpler here in a bit, but we surface the apps directly through the Windows app itself. And similar to those workspace names that you're familiar with within Azure Virtual Desktop, you can flip over this Windows 365 mode and you can see all the published cloud apps. You can see we've got Excel, Edge, Outlook, etc. Now, the way this actually works is it requires a Windows 365 frontline shared. Well, it requires the frontline license type, but you have to deploy it in shared mode. And so what we do is we create a provisioning policy and we set all the settings like you normally would with a cloud PC, give it a name, all that good stuff. But all of the apps that are installed on that machine will then be able to be published as remote apps. I don't know, Richard, have you actually done this yet? Have you tested it?
No, I was looking at doing it today, but I had too many meetings to
get
to do it. But so one of the things there though is that if you go through the documentation, in order for the application to show up, it actually has to be surfaced up in the start menu of the device. So the way this kind of works now is that it's create a custom, like if you have custom apps, right? So if you're not just deploying Excel or Outlook or any of the stuff that is included in the gallery image, if you want to include third-party browser or something else, you will need to create a custom image and have that in Windows 365. And once that custom image is there, there's actually a PowerShell script that we have that goes through and it actually scans the start menu to see which applications are acceptable as cloud apps. And so once we've done that, you'll actually see those apps and you'll be able to deploy them. Once they're deployed, they'll look at what it looks like here on the screen, where you can see the different cloud apps showing up under Windows 365. And it should be a very similar experience to what Azure Virtual Desktop currently provides in terms of the end user experience. You should see it to be very, very similar.
And even though it's a little complicated right now,
right?
Once we get device preparation policy support for Windows 365 Frontline Shared, which is coming, we're hoping by the end of the year, that will really streamline the publishing of apps.
Yeah, so you might think, well, why on earth would I do a custom image? The whole reason, Microsoft, you told us to go to Windows 365 is so I didn't have to use custom images. And you keep telling me not to use custom images, and yet now you come out with this thing that says you have to use custom images.
And we can't use an FFU yet.
Yeah, I don't think I'll ever be able to do that. But we are going to make this better, as Gary mentioned. I've got it highlighted on the text there below. This is in public preview right now. So given that in public preview today, you have to create a custom image for this. In the future, we will tie into Autopilot device prep, and the applications that you have made available through device preparation will then be available as cloud apps. So the custom image piece is a temporary thing for now. But once device prep support comes in, then we should be able to do away with the need for the custom image. So right now, if you want to test this out today, if you're using Windows 365, you should see it in your tenant. I was told yesterday or this morning that this should be available now in all tenants. So try it out. Yes, you'll have to use a custom image right now, but try it out. Let us know how it works. And then hopefully here in the next X number of months, I don't know exactly when the Autopilot device prep stuff is going to come. Once that's out, then you'll be able to use your applications that are deployed natively through Intune.
Yeah, so it's really great call out, Richard, right? It's public preview today, but you have to have a Windows 365 Frontline license, right? You have to at least have that in your environment, whether it's a trial or a paid SKU. And so if you go into the Windows 365 section of your devices pane, you'll see now a tab for all cloud apps. And I actually did this, but I haven't fully tested everything yet. But what you'll do is you'll create a provisioning policy for your cloud apps. You'll deploy a custom image. You'll see that based on that image, all of the apps that are then ready to publish. And you can see I've already published the Edge browser, but if I wanted to publish PowerPoint, right, I would come in here and I would just publish that directly. But you'll notice what it's, the actual icon path, the file path itself, it's pulling all of that information within this policy here. So it will get even simpler. So the ability to deliver a virtualized app through the Windows app to all your users pretty quickly, I think it's going to be really, really exciting for a lot of customers.
I like how it gives you the ODBC data sources connector.
Yeah, a lot
It's
of
like
things
it
installed.
literally is
There's the
pulling
telemetry
everything
log
out of
for
your start.
Office.
It
Yeah.
literally is pulling everything out of your start menu.
Yeah, and this was actually based off the gallery image, right? So if I look at my provisioning policy here, I did a Cloud Apps demo, that this is the gallery image, right? So the Windows 11 Enterprise plus M365 apps, 24H2, and when you view the available apps on this machine, there it is in all its glory, right? Task Manager.
So did you go and select all those? Did you
No.
select them? Or
So here's what you do, right? When you create the provisioning policy, you can look at the apps that are available. So this is everything that's just available for me to be able to publish. So once I create the provisioning policy and I actually provision the cloud PC, which this is it, right? This is a real legit frontline shared cloud PC. I can click into it. I can treat it as any other device within my Intune console. But under the All Cloud Apps pane, I now see all of the apps that are associated to this provisioning policy that are in there. So it shows you what's going to be ready for publication.
so you had no choice for
I
that
had
list
no
of
choice.
apps.
All of these are imported. Now they're not published.
So it imports disk cleanup.
Yep.
As an so I want you to publish disk cleanup to a user and run it.
Yeah, do as I say, not as I do.
I'm gonna have to go investigate their PowerShell script to figure out why they're pulling in certain things.
And that's what's interesting, right?
That's
Because
hilarious.
this is the cloud, or this is the gallery image, right? So this is where you would want to do a custom image so that you only make available the apps that you want to publish, not all of these.
I'm not so sure that even with your custom image you wouldn't get this stuff. I'm pretty sure you're going to see all this because it's probably all driven by their PowerShell script and how they're doing
right,
it.
but if you
but see,
we'll
now you don't
have
have to publish them, right? You just see this in your list, right? So the admin has to kind of sift through all this.
Yeah, you have to know what you're looking for, right?
Yeah,
so there's a search bar here. Look, Edge. I'm gonna search for Edge. So know what you're looking for. Know what you want to publish.
Yeah.
Pro tip.
Don't select all and
don't
publish
select
all.
And this is like one of the only times we actually give you a select all in Intune.
That's hilarious. I love it. I love it.
Yep. We can also unpublish these, right? So at any given point, you can unpublish this, and you'll notice that's tied to a user group here. And I've just got this targeted to my Hermione group, so I could go log in as Hermione, open up the Windows app, and I should see that virtualized Edge browser there.
I just find it funny because you're running disk cleanup as a cloud app that is going to clean the disk of the VM that the cloud app is running. It's not going to clean the disk of your machine.
Right.
Oh,
Steps recorder.
That's hilarious.
All kinds of fun stuff.
The iSCSI initiator. Yeah.
We hope you enjoyed that.
All right.
Okay, we've got a number of questions in the chat. That's all the updates that we have for today. So thanks for hanging with us through that.
I'm gonna let you answer all these.
Is
Seth here? Is Seth here?
Yeah. Let the hazing begin.
He's not here. No.
I think it's me, you, Chenille.
Chenille. Chenille's here. She can answer all the questions.
All right. Yeah, I've talked enough. Come on, Chenille.
All right, what do we got?
The first question, it looks like, from Jonathan is, why can't they add an option in the Autopilot enrollment page to also delete the AAD and Intune objects?
I mean, they could. It's software. You can do just about anything with it. I don't know why they don't. Historically, like AD cleanup has always been this manual process. We say manual, but really you should be scripting it if you're not. But cleanup has always been a challenge. I can't comment on why they haven't added it yet, but it's kind of funny because Intune added its own cleanup, but that doesn't extend out to Autopilot, doesn't extend out to Entra. So you've got effectively 3 objects that you need to clean up, and only one tool is doing any of the cleanup, but you really need a tool that does all 3. So could it be better? Yeah, but I haven't seen a lot of appetite to change how it currently is.
Yeah, and there's some scripts out there that you can do to offboard all of them if you're looking to do that. I know I wrote one at one point. So if that's necessary, there's ways to do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, Tom. Go
Tom's
ahead.
question. I have read several articles about the enrolled by field and its meaning, etc. I would love to get more clarity on what it means for hybrid devices and later for intra-join devices as we get there.
So
Tom, is there something specific you want to add, or Richard, can
Yeah,
you know it?
basically there was two very interesting articles put out by Patch My PC that what's funny is they came one right after the other. I've been very interested in the enroll by because the enroll by is sort of a tattoo that occurs that you seem to have no control over. And in the education environment, we have a large number of devices that are in a shared state, and we've been unclear what it means to us from that aspect. One of the articles did imply that when the person who does the enroll by is like, fired, or, in the students, they leave and their account is disabled, that it could cause a negative impact on the machine. They implied that it would make the machine not compliant. Then they came up with a second article that sort of backed off of that statement. But it's been one of the questions I have. I'll deploy, I have 300 or 400 machines in open labs that are in a shared environment, and I'm not clear. Should I be stamping those with one of my team's accounts? Does it matter? Can I just let it get stamped by the first student who logs into them? What are the implications? And with the hybrid join, I'm kind of expecting the implications are lighter because they're actually joining as the device through SCCM, enrollment, and they're not really being enrolled by that user, I think. But eventually, we're going to get to a point where we're intra-joined, right? That's where we're trying to get to. We need to figure out how to do delegated management in that world. We're using SCCM and collections to, separate ourselves. But I would imagine in the intra-join, the enrolled by user might be more important in terms of, so I'm just curious, is the enrolled by like an appendix and we should just ignore it, or does it have meaning and do we need to be managing it?
So you've got really two things to deal with there. You've got the enrolled by user, and then you've got the primary user, right? And so oftentimes those are the same, but in many cases, they're also different. When it comes to hybrid joining, the hybrid join process is actually, it's actually driven by the user that signs in the first time that you have enabled the ability for hybrid join. So as an example, let's say I've got a config manager environment and I'm domain joined. And I've decided that I, as the IT admin, have decided that I want to turn on hybrid join because I want to get co-management stood up because I want to start dabbling into Intune a bit. I haven't used it before, but I want to get started with that. So the first thing I need to do is I need to hybrid join my devices. Well, with Config Manager, there's just an option that sets a local policy that allows for the devices to be registered into Entra or into Azure AD Entra. So I turn that it's just a little checkbox in your client settings. You just turn that on and okay, that works. However, when a device is hybrid joined, the process of hybrid joining requires you to obviously specify the OU of the devices that you want to join. And then there's a scheduled task on the client itself. After you set that one policy, there's a scheduled task that runs. And that task runs when after a user is signed in. So this is why we tell people, okay, once you've turned on hybrid join, don't immediately expect everything in that OU to just automatically sync. It's not going to happen. You need to wait, and it could be about a month for everything to show up. And it's because we need a user to sign in after we've turned on hybrid join. If they're already signed in, we need them to sign out and then sign in. So this is why we generally tell people it's going to take about a month because you need that device to most likely reboot. Because the only time people sign out is either if they're told to sign out or shut down their machines, or when Patch Tuesday hits and your patches have installed for the month. Now, if you've turned on hot patching, Well, now you're probably not rebooting or signing out and signing in for about 3 months. But if you're at that point, you probably are hybrid joined, or at least
Managed.
you're already joined to Entra. But we're getting to the point now where people have to sign out and sign in. And so if they don't do that, then you're going to see this really long delay between a device showing up as hybrid joined. So when we do that hybrid join, then once that scheduled task runs, there's an attribute on your device object on your domain controller for that computer object. There's an attribute for the user certificate. So there's a user cert that we use the user identity to create that user certificate, and we sync that attribute. We need that attribute in order to synchronize the object up to actually create that link between the device and Entra. And so when we do all of this and all this stuff happens, the enrolled by user should be the user that was signed in at the moment of you turning on hybrid join and them signing in, right? It's not that when you just turned it on, then automatically they're the enrolled by user. If they were there and the machine was already signed on, they were already signed in, you turned on hybrid join, but then they signed out, and then you as the IT admin signed back in, and then the enrollment happened, well, now you'll be the enrolled by user. So what we'll see in a hybrid environment is that you might have a bunch of machines that are enrolled by all sorts of random users. Could be IT people, could be just the regular users themselves. And they may not actually end up being the primary user of the machine. And so we've seen problems with this with like the company portal application. You try to run the company portal app, but they're not the primary user. And so if the primary user is wrong, now we've got to fix the primary user because the enrolled by user might have actually been the primary user as well, but they're not the actual current user of the device right now. So in terms of the blog post you saw from Patch My PC, I'm assuming Rudy Ohms probably wrote both. Yeah. He writes pretty much all of them. I don't know that I saw both specific posts, or if I did, it was probably a while ago. But I personally haven't tested to validate that if the enrolled by user has been deleted, if like what the problems are with the machine. I personally haven't tested it. No one's come to me and complained that it's causing us any significant problems. What people have complained a lot about, though, is the primary user. When the primary user is not the user that's currently using the machine, then you run into situations where I can't install applications from the company portal. Like that's the bigger problem that I see.
But that's of course changeable.
What's that?
The primary user you can at least set.
Correct. Yeah.
The enrolled by user is like a permanent tattoo that seems like, it's forever.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's a read-only attribute in the graph, or if you can change it later. I mean, I would imagine we wouldn't want you to ever change it because otherwise it's kind of a useless variable. It's a useless, property on the object. But yeah, primary user is the one that's usually the biggest challenge. And this is why I go back to saying using self-deploying autopilot profiles, especially in those shared scenarios, are the best. Because there is no enrolled by, the enrolled by user, quote unquote, is the device itself. But there's no primary user associated with the device. It's a bulk shared type of device. And so anyone can use the company portal. And you really don't have any major issues outside of people not being able to get like the BitLocker recovery key. But it's a shared device. That really doesn't matter a whole lot in those kinds of scenarios. So if you need the BitLocker recovery key of it, then you just go into Intune or you go into Entra, go find the recovery key and recover the device as you need.
I saw in the article they were talking about the the device owning itself, enrolling itself. We're doing SCCM enrollment, so my devices are hybrid joining there, and they don't have any enrolled by user or primary user. They hybrid join, no interaction, they get all the way to be Intune, and they're both blank. Intune, primary user and enrolled by is blank. And the device is fully hybrid joined and it's, Intune manageable. But then I open the door to my labs, my students go in and they start tattooing the machine with the enrolled by. So we're literally stamping them with our accounts at that point. I would love to get in the state. So I guess I need to look. The only way to get that, you're saying, is to do the autopilot where it's I'll have to look into that. We haven't set up autopilot yet, so I don't have any experience with autopilot. but getting to a point where we actually have devices where the company portal could be used to install software and we're not stamping it with people would be massive advantage. So I'm very interested. If you guys could provide links and so we could read about that more, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, if you use either a provisioning package, so I talked about Autopilot, but if you're not using Autopilot yet, you can also use provisioning packages to do the enrollment.
Okay.
If you use that method, that method effectively is very, very, very similar to how Autopilot self-deploying works. So in that case, you use what's called a bulk enrollment token to enroll the device. And there's no primary user associated with it. So at that point, the company portal app can be used for self-serving any application that you've made available through Intune.
Okay. Like I said, I was mainly interested in the, like I said, if I let it get just stamped by the enrolled by students, they come and go. And main thing I wanted to be aware of is if users who are stamped to my current devices that are, enrolled by, am I concerned if that account gets deleted? Because like the primary user, I could change that. It'll be annoying temporarily. I could fix it. The enrolled by, I can't. So it sounds like the enrolled by is not something I should be concerned about in terms of an account getting stamped that could disappear and I have to reload the machine to get it happy again.
I'm not sure. I don't know if anyone else on the call or anyone in chat has mentioned anything, but I'm not sure what happens if you delete the enrolled by user, if there's going to be any negative consequences for like being able to sign in or do anything with that device. I personally haven't tested it, and no one's complained about it in, I don't know, 10 years. So, I mean, if there is a major issue there, then I would imagine someone would have said something to me at some point.
And I appreciate you sharing the link, Tom. I'm looking at it too. And I think it looks like Jonathan has also heard the same thing concerning the significance of the enrolled by user. If their account is deleted, the device compliance or sync would stop functioning. And then Zahedai said, if we've had issues in the past where users leave and their Intune license is taken away, the devices that are enrolled by those users for hybrid join machines have the MDM actually switch from Intune to Office 365 Mobile. And it seems like the device has to be re-enrolled in Intune immediately at that point.
So that one I can actually explain. And that's one of those that I don't think most people really realize it, but you have two MDMs at your disposal. There's one for Office 365 Basic and Mobility, and then there's also Intune. And if you have a lot of Office 365 A1 users and you have set up Office 365 Basic and Mobility, it's gone through a bunch of different names over the years. But if you ever turned that on, maybe just playing around, testing something out, that creates another MDM enrollment in your tenant. So now you have two MDMs. You have Intune and you have the O365 Basic Mobility and Security. When you have both of those in the environment, if you remove an Intune license from a user, so imagine a shared device, and we've got one user that's got the Intune license, they've been using it, all the Intune policies come down, everything's good, there aren't any problems. That user signs out. When they sign out, everything's still okay. But an A1 user signs in next. Well, that A1 user doesn't have an Intune license. So they fall back to that O365 Basic Mobility and Security. Well, now all your Intune policies have been ripped out. None of those policies apply anymore because those policies don't exist on the Office 365 side of things. So now you're basically in this situation where the policies you expect to be there aren't there because that A1 user has signed in. And then so now they sign out, your Intune licensed user signs in, and now all the policies are back. So we see this in a lot of the A1 user situations, specifically around shared devices, because especially with student use benefit, your student use benefits do give you access to Intune. So if you aren't deploying the student use benefit out to your students, obviously you definitely want to do that, especially if you're going to be using shared devices with other people that are leveraging Intune. Where this becomes a big problem is with like your non-information workers that don't get access to a faculty or staff A3 or A5 license. So if these are like temporary staff. You might have like substitute teachers or things like that. They might just have an A1 license and they sign into maybe a shared device. Could be like a podium machine for them to make, to present to the class or something. In those situations, they sign in and they're Intune. There's no Intune license associated, and then it's gone. So a lot of people might think, well, how do we fix this? Do we just go buy device licenses? Well, no, don't buy device licenses. People have done that, or they've been told to do that, and it's going to magically fix things. It doesn't. The device license is purely there for compliance reasons. It's not there as a technical solution for device management. If you're in that situation, you can reach out to us. We do have some solutions there, but it's not pretty. We definitely need to have a better technical answer to that problem. But it is something that we see quite often. At least I say quite often. I think it's a bigger problem than we've been told. I think it's out there a lot, but I haven't had enough complaints about it. But I'm sure now that I mention this, and this is going to go out to YouTube, and I'm sure people on the internet are going to find it.
It's like
Garrett is going to get a lot. Garrett's going to get a lot of emails.
The rose-colored glasses are off, right? Like, now you're going to see it.
Garrett's going to get a lot of email. I'm just going to say that.
Probably so, but that's okay.
And this would be a problem that would disappear as soon as an IT person logged in with their full Intune license. They'd be like, eh.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. It's like, as an IT admin, you'd sign in and be like, well, I don't see a problem. Well, you must be like making it up, right? But it's definitely something that I think is bigger. It's more widespread than I think we've been let on. It's just that I think a lot of people would say, hey, that's just how it is. But yeah, it's challenging. All right, what else we got, Garrett?
Okay, we have like 5 more minutes, so we're going to go through a couple of quick ones, I think. Jonathan has a question. Are there any future plans for policy sets? I've always loved the concept, even with some of the limitations regarding app types, but I noticed that as I started experimenting with Android enrollment, that Android enterprise configurations aren't available in policy sets. That's right, they're not. There's a lot missing.
There's a lot missing. It's like policy sets came out, they sounded good, and then I don't know if COVID happened or something, but once, like, if anything was like being worked on before COVID, it's like we have like BC and AC, like before COVID and after COVID.